Mom mortgaged our home for my sister's dream wedding. When I filed the papers, they realized I was done sacrificing for their dreams. I never imagined I would be posting my own, yet here we are. This occurred nearly a year ago, and I am finally ready to reveal the entire disaster. My name is Rachel. I'm 26 and formerly lived with my mother Catherine, 50, and my younger sister Sophia, 21. Dad died when I was 18. Since then, it's just the three of us at our family home in suburban Cleveland. Well, it was meant to be our house. Let me give you an idea of how things operated in the Martinez household. Sophia was the golden kid since birth. Mom was always making excuses. She is younger. She is more sensitive. She needs additional help. Meanwhile, I was expected to be the responsible one. The one who didn't need anything. The one who should be content with what she had, while Sophia wanted to quit her part-time job at the local coffee shop because her manager was cruel to her. Mom backed her decision by increasing her allowance. When I asked if I could use some of my college fund to study abroad junior year, money doesn't grow on trees, Rachel. Be practical. Sophia received a brand new Honda Civic for her 18th birthday. I purchased a used bike and was encouraged to be grateful for any form of mobility. Sophia's pals were always welcome to stay overnight, order pizza, and make noise until 2 a.m. When my college friends arrived, my mother would complain about the commotion and urge them to leave by 10 p.m. But the real stinger was that when Dad died, he bequeathed the house to all three of us equally. Mom received the larger share as his husband, but Sophia and I both inherited portions. We all owned it together, albeit Mom handled all of the household finances and choices. Mom always promised that when she died, Sophia and I would share the inheritance evenly. It's only fair, she'd explain. This house belongs to all of us. I finished from college with a marketing degree and began working as a marketing assistant at a mid-size firm downtown. I was making $48,000 per year, which wasn't much, but it was enough to cover household expenses and start saving. I offered to pay the rent several times, but Mom always refused. This is your home, honey. Family doesn't pay rent. Sophia, on the other hand, dropped out of community college after just one semester, claiming it was not for her. She'd had roughly 8 different jobs in 2 years, generally resigning after a month or two due to conflict with coworkers or customers. Mom never pressed her to contribute monetarily. She's figuring herself out, was the common theme. The circumstance that eventually broke me began in February. Sophia had been dating this man named Ethan for almost 6 months. He was fine, I suppose, but Sophia was utterly fixated on him. She talked about him all the time, blogged about their connection on social media every day, and essentially made him her entire personality. Sophia came into the living room one day in early March, literally vibrating with enthusiasm as Mom and I were watching TV. "Ethan proposed," she exclaimed, waving out a little diamond ring. "We're engaged." I admit, my immediate thought was that they were far too young and hadn't been together long enough to make such a commitment. But I congratulated her and inquired about their plans. That's when things became interesting. "We want to have a destination wedding," Sophia said. "Somewhere tropical and beautiful. Ethan has been looking at resorts in the Bahamas." Mom instantly began gushing about how romantic and great that sounded. I asked a practical inquiry. "How are you planning to pay for that? Those kinds of weddings are expensive." Sophia's face sank slightly. "Well, we were hoping. I mean, since Dad always said he wanted to walk me down the aisle someday." She looked at Mom with puppy dog eyes. Mom's expression relaxed entirely. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll figure something out. This is your special day." Sophia compulsively investigated venues over the next few weeks. She chose this wonderful resort in Nassau, which cost $18,000 for the wedding package alone, excluding flights, lodging, and any additional expenses. We were looking at about $32,000 for a family of 3, including Ethan's parents. I tried to be supportive. I actually did. But when Sophia mentioned flying first class and upgrading to Ocean View suites, I had to say something. "Jess, maybe we should look at some more budget-friendly options. There are beautiful places that don't cost quite so much." She looked at me as if I'd suggested getting married at a gas station. "Rachel, this is my dream wedding. I've been planning this my whole life. You've been engaged for 3 weeks. You're just jealous because no one wants to marry you." It hurt, but I ignored it. Sophia has always been dramatic. When my mother called a family meeting in late March, the underlying issue became evident. She'd been calculating figures, she explained, and the wedding would necessitate some imaginative funding. They had fixed the date for September 15th, giving us 6 months to plan and save. I've been thinking about the house, she explained thoughtfully. You know, property values have gone up a lot in the past few years. If we took out a home equity loan, we could easily cover Sophia's wedding costs. I stared at her. You want to mortgage the house for a wedding? It's not just any wedding, Rachel. It's Sophia's dream wedding, and it's not like we'd be spending the money frivolously. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Mom, what if something happens to your income? What if you can't make the payments? We could lose the house. Don't be so negative. My job is stable, and you're contributing now too. We can handle the monthly payments. I tried to explain that taking on that much debt for a party seemed extremely hazardous, especially since Sophia and Ethan had no money and irregular jobs. Mom accused me of being unsupportive and envious, but I promised to think about it. What options did I have? It was a 2-on-1 situation, and Mom handled the household finances. Several weeks later, in April, Mom approached me again. She had gone to the bank and been pre-approved for a $38,000 home equity loan. The monthly payments would be approximately $420, which she was certain we could afford with her earnings and my contribution to household expenditures. There's just one small thing, she explained. Since you and Sophia are both on the deed as co-owners, the bank needs all three of us to sign the loan documents. My stomach sank. Mom, I really don't feel comfortable with this. Rachel, please. This is for your sister's happiness. Don't you want Sophia to have the wedding she's always dreamed of? I requested for more time to ponder, but the pressure was relentless. Sophia would make remarks about how I was the only thing standing between her and her ideal day. Mom would sigh deeply anytime wedding preparations came up, expressing Sophia's disappointment that we couldn't move further. Finally, in early May, I caved. I signed the loan forms, and Mom immediately began transferring funds to meet Sophia's wedding expenditures. The date was scheduled for September 15th, only 4 months away. Almost quickly, spending grew out of control. Sophia thought she needed a new clothing for her trip. She scheduled spa treatments and trips that were not part of the original plan. She insisted on holding the rehearsal dinner at the resort's most costly restaurant. When I mentioned the rising expenditures, Mom advised me not to worry about it. We'll figure it out. This is Sophia's time. Sophia announced 2 weeks before the wedding that she'd invited 6 more pals to join the festivities. The more the merrier, she exclaimed joyfully. I did the math. With the extra visitors, improved rooms, and all the add-ons Sophia kept wanting, we were looking at about $55,000 in total expenses, which our $38,000 loan wouldn't cover. How are we going to pay for the rest? I asked my mother. I've been thinking about that, she responded. I could get some cash advances on my credit cards to make up the gap. Perhaps $9,000 or so. I felt nauseous. Mom, that is insane. The interest rates for cash advances are around 25%. We'll never be able to repay that amount. Rachel, sometimes you have to take risks for the people you care about. Sophia deserves it. I tried to reason with them again, suggesting that they cut back on some of the frills. Perhaps decreasing the guest list or finding methods to minimize costs without jeopardizing Sophia's vision. They both acted as if I was attempting to spoil Sophia's happiness out of spite. You'll understand when you're older, Mom replied dismissively. Right now, you're concerned with money, but family is what really matters. Someday, you'll want your family to make sacrifices for your happiness too. That remark stuck with me for days. You'll understand when you're older. I was 26 years old, a college graduate, working and contributing to the household. But obviously, I was too young and immature to form an informed view about incurring severe debt for a party. The final straw occurred 1 week before the wedding. When I got home from work, I found Sophia and Mom in the living room, surrounded by shopping bags. Sophia was showing off a fancy dress she had purchased for the rehearsal dinner. It was $900, but it's Valentino, she said. I'll probably never own anything this nice again. It got stolen. Sophia, we're already $18,000 over budget for this wedding. Why are you still spending money we don't have? God, Rachel, you're so obsessed with money. It's just a dress. It's a $900 dress that we're paying for with credit card debt. Sophia's voice became frigid. This is my wedding. If you don't want to be supportive, maybe you shouldn't come. I stared at my mother, hoping for her to say something, anything, to admit how ridiculous this had become. Instead of sighing, she said, Rachel, I know you're stressed about the finances, but can't you just be happy for your sister? This is the most important day of her life. That night, I was unable to sleep. I continued thinking about what Mom said. "You'll understand when you're older." Her tone was condescending, and she dismissed my very sensible concerns, assuming that I was simply too young to appreciate the value of family. I remembered my father, who had always treated me as an intelligent individual whose ideas mattered. He would never have taken out a mortgage to pay for our wedding. He certainly would not have ignored my worries with arrogant remarks about age and maturity. And I thought about the house. Dad had given it to all three of us equally. Mom always said it will be mine and Sophia's someday, that it was our security and inheritance. She was willing to risk losing it for a party. That's when I made a decision. The following morning, I called in ill from work and spent the day researching real estate lawyers and property law. What I discovered was quite intriguing. Sophia and I were both listed on the deed as equal co-owners with Mom, so any of us might ask the court for a division sale. Essentially, if co-owners of a property cannot agree on how to administer it, the court may order that it be sold and the proceeds distributed based on ownership percentages. It was a nuclear option, and it would most likely kill my connection with my family. But I was facing years of debt payments on debts I didn't want. Sophia might also have a flawless princess moment. I spent the weekend meeting with lawyers. The process would take several months, but it was certainly conceivable. Recent comparable sales indicated that the house was worth around $350,000. There was still around $190,000 remaining on the old mortgage, plus the new $38,000 home equity loan. After paying the legal bills, we'd have about $105,000 remaining to split three ways. My share would be about $33,000. Not a large sum, but enough for a respectable flat deposit and some breathing room. But I wasn't quite prepared to go nuclear. I decided to have one final talk with Mom. Monday evening, I requested her to meet with me privately. I expressed my concerns about the debt we were incurring, the risk to our property, and the pattern of financial recklessness that this wedding represented. "Mom, I love Sophia and I want her to be happy, but we're mortgaging our future for one day. What happens if you lose your job? What happens if the house needs major repairs? We'll have no equity left and $55,000 in high-interest debt." Mom listened, but I could tell from her eyes that she had already made up her mind. "Rachel, I understand your concern, but there are moments in life when you must take risks for the people you care about. Sophia has had difficulty finding her way, and this wedding marks a new beginning for her. I'm not going to let financial concerns deprive her of this moment. What about my future? How about my security? You are young, smart, and capable. You will figure things out. Sophia needs additional help right now." There it was. The same old dynamic that had defined our family since Dad's death. Sophia's wants were always prioritized. My issues were always secondary. "What if I stated I wanted to sell my house?" I asked gently. Mom's face turned white. "What? What if I told you I don't want to be a part of this anymore? What if I decided to pay out my stake and start over elsewhere?" "Rachel, you cannot be serious. This is our family's home. Your father wanted us to remain together. Dad urged us to take care of one another. He didn't want us to go bankrupt hosting parties." We debated for another hour, but it was evident that Mom wasn't going to budge. Sophia's wedding was going to happen regardless of the financial ramifications, and I was expected to go along with it since family loyalty came first. That night, I called the lawyer I had previously talked with and informed him I intended to proceed with a partition case. He explained that I would need to have the other parties professionally served with legal papers, as leaving paperwork on a kitchen table would not be legally sufficient. The next morning, Tuesday, August 5th, exactly 6 weeks before Sophia's wedding, I submitted the formal paperwork to compel the sale of our family home. I arranged for a process server to deliver the papers to Mom and Sophia the following Monday, August 12th, giving them a full month before the wedding to process the situation. I didn't tell Mom and Sophia about the lawsuit right away because they were leaving for the Bahamas on Thursday, September 12th, and I wanted to give myself enough time to figure out my next steps before the inevitable explosion. The process server would deliver the documents on Monday, August 12th, giving them a full month to resolve the legal issues before their wedding. On Wednesday evening, September 11th, I packed 2 suitcases with my most crucial items and loaded them into my car. I selected a short-term rental property across town, paid a deposit, and scheduled a week of vacation from work to begin immediately. Thursday morning, I waited until Mom and Sophia went for the airport. Sophia was literally bouncing with excitement, chatting non-stop about how great everything would be. Mom was anxious about all the last-minute preparations, but glad to see Sophia so joyful, and they hardly acknowledged my departure. I was sticking behind to hold down the fort and would see them when they returned on Monday. After their Uber left, I walked through the house one more time, remembering Dad teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway, helping me with homework at the kitchen table, and reading bedtime stories in my childhood bedroom. I was going to miss this place, but it hadn't felt like home in a long time. I put a sealed envelope on the kitchen table with Mom's name on it, including a copy of the partition court paperwork and a brief note. Mom, I tried to express my concerns, but you made it plain that Sophia's desires are more important than our family's financial security. Because you are willing to risk the house for her wedding, I have chosen to collect my part now, rather than waiting for the inevitable foreclosure. You should have received the official court documents last month. My attorney's contact information is supplied. I'll be staying somewhere else while this gets resolved. I hope Sophia's wedding fulfills all of her expectations. Rachel. I also placed my house key on the table next to the envelope, and I drove to my new apartment to wait. They returned Monday evening, September 16th, around 8 p.m. I was watching Netflix when my phone started blowing up, and the first call came from Sophia at 8:47 p.m., which I let go to voicemail. The second call came from Mom at 9:15 p.m., which also went to voicemail. She said she was disappointed beyond words, and couldn't understand how I could be so cruel and selfish, and she demanded that I call her back right away to explain myself. Over the following 3 hours, I received 47 phone calls, 32 text messages, and God knows how many voicemails. Mom and Sophia alternated between wrath, pleading, and guilt-tripping. Here are some highlights from Sophia. I can't believe you'd do this to me at the best period of my life. Mom is crying, and it is entirely your fault. From Mom. Your father would be ashamed of you. How could you so viciously assault your own family members? From Sophia again. Chase's parents think we're white trash now because of the case. You have humiliated me. From Mom. If you believe you can coerce us into giving you money, you are mistaken. We will fight this. I didn't answer to any of them. What was the point? For months I tried to have normal conversations, but they always dismissed me. On Tuesday morning, I received a call from my lawyer, Tom Bennett. Mom had called his office and left some extremely furious messages. She seems to think you can just drop the lawsuit if you want to, he said. I explained that it does not operate that way once the paperwork is filed, but she did not appear to comprehend. How long will it take? I asked. About 4 to 6 months, providing they do not contest it. If they fight, it might last longer. What are the possibilities that they will fight it? Honestly, it's low. The law is fairly clear regarding partition rights. Fighting it would only cost them legal fees, which they evidently cannot afford. Sophia stopped by my workplace that afternoon. Security called to inform me that I had a visitor who was causing a commotion in the lobby. I hurried downstairs to find Sophia crying and making a fuss in front of the registration counter. Rachel, please, she begged when she spotted me. You must stop this. Mom can't sleep, she's discussing taking out additional debts to fight the lawsuit. I walked her outside so we could talk privately. Jess, I attempted to talk about this with you guys for months. You would not listen. But I've just got married. This was meant to be the best period of my life. But now everything is wrecked. How was your wedding? The inquiry appeared to take her off guard. It was beautiful. Perfect. Actually, the resort was fantastic, and the event was like a fairy tale. I'm happy. I actually am. I wanted you to have a lovely wedding. So why are you doing this? I tried again to explain the debt, the financial risk, and the pattern of favoritism that had brought us to this position. Sophia listened, but I could tell she wasn't paying attention. I don't understand why you're so obsessed with money, she finally remarked. It's only money. We are family. To Sophia, money was just something that appeared when she needed it, and the consequences of overspending were someone else's problem. I, on the other hand, saw money as a symbol of security, independence, and the ability to make decisions about my own life. I'm not obsessed with money, I informed her. I just don't want to spend the next 10 years paying off debt for your party. This wasn't simply a party. It was my wedding. A wedding lasts one day. The debt would have lasted a decade. She went without saying goodbye, and the next few weeks were difficult as Mom and Sophia tried various strategies to persuade me to withdraw the lawsuit. Mom promised to refinance the house and remove my name from all loans if I stopped the legal action. Sophia wrote me a lengthy letter about family devotion and forgiveness, and when that didn't work, they attempted to turn others against me. Mom called my aunts and uncles to inform them that I was tearing the family apart over money. Sophia made cryptic social media statements about being betrayed by someone she trusted, and several of our extended family came out to me, largely to express their concern about what was going on. When I described the issue, the majority of them were really very supportive. Uncle David, my father's brother, stated he thought it was prudent of me to preserve my financial future. "Your dad always worried about your mom's spending," he told me over coffee one afternoon. He used to say Catherine was too generous for her own good, especially when it came to Sophia. That surprised me, but it made sense in retrospect. Mom and Sophia hired a lawyer to represent them, but as Tom anticipated, there was little they could do to halt the proceedings. The court ordered an appraisal of the property and set a hearing to approve the sale. During this time, I had to cope with unexpected consequences. Word of the case had traveled around our neighborhood, and I began receiving sympathetic but intrusive questions from neighbors. When I returned to gather more of my stuff, Mrs. Patterson from next door approached me one afternoon, as I was loading boxes into my car. "Rachel, honey, I heard about what's happening with the house," she continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "I just want you to know that your father would be proud of you for standing up for yourself." That comment hurt me more than I anticipated. I'd been questioning myself constantly, wondering if Dad would truly approve of me forcing the sale of our family home. But Mrs. Patterson had known our family for 15 years, and she'd seen Sophia grow up with everything handed to her while I worked hard for every opportunity. "Your mother means well," she added, "but that girl of hers has been spoilt rotten since your father's death. Someone had to put an end to it eventually." At work, I pushed myself into my projects with renewed zeal. Having my own house and knowing I was working toward true financial independence gave me energy I hadn't felt in years. My employer, Clara, observed the shift and approached me during our monthly one-on-one meeting. "I don't know what's going on in your personal life, but whatever it is seems to be agreeing with you," she remarked. "Your work has been fantastic during the last few months. I've been considering promoting you to Senior Marketing Coordinator." The promotion included a $9,000 salary rise, which felt like the world confirming me I had made the right decision. I was finally getting acknowledged for my contributions, rather than being regarded as an ATM for other people's ambitions. Meanwhile, the tension at home was intensifying in ways I learned about through family gossip. My cousin Maria called me in early August to tell me what she'd heard from her mother, who'd spoken with Mom. Sophia has apparently been having panic attacks about the house situation, and Maria informed me that she believes everyone in town is talking about their financial problems, and she is too humiliated to leave the house. I felt a feeling of sympathy, but then Maria went on. "The strange thing is, she's still posting on Instagram about how great her wedding was and showing off all the nice stuff she got for the honeymoon. Like, girl, maybe don't flaunt those fancy handbags if you're trying to gain pity for your financial issues." Sophia wanted to be viewed as both the victim of my unfair lawsuit and the attractive newlywed living her best life. The true eye-opener occurred when I ran into Ethan's mother, Barbara, at the grocery store in mid-August. I had only seen her a few times before the wedding, but she recognized me and approached with caution. "Rachel, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is everything fine with your family? Ethan said that there were some legal concerns with your residence." I gave her a quick diplomatic description of the partition lawsuit, emphasizing the money dispute rather than the family drama. Barbara listened with increasing alarm. "Oh my," she exclaimed when I finished. "Ethan didn't tell us the whole story. We just assumed you were having a family disagreement over wedding expenses." "What did Sophia tell you?" Barbara appeared uncomfortable. "Well, she claimed you were resentful of not being the focus of attention and were attempting to wreck her marriage by generating financial stress. She made it sound like you were being vengeful about something minor." Of course she had. I wasn't surprised, but it still hurt to know Sophia was spreading that version of events to Ethan's family. The truth is, I carefully explained to Barbara that I was concerned about the amount of debt being incurred for the wedding. When I attempted to suggest alternatives, I was told that I was too young to grasp family priorities. I believed my only alternative was to preserve my personal financial interests. Barbara nodded slowly. "I have to admit that Ethan's father and I were astounded by how pricey everything was. We volunteered to help, but Sophia insisted that everything be exactly as she intended it, regardless of expense. We ended up spending twice what we had planned just to keep up." This was news to me. I had no idea Ethan's parents had similarly been coerced into overpaying on Sophia's vision. "Between you and me," Barbara said, "Ethan has been anxious about money since they returned from his honeymoon. Sophia keeps talking about purchasing a house and starting a baby right away, but they can't afford their present apartment with all of their wedding debt." After that chat, I felt more convinced than ever that I'd made the correct decision. It wasn't just about protecting myself from debt, it was also about refusing to perpetuate a pattern of financial carelessness that was harming everyone around Sophia, including her new husband. The court-ordered appraisal took place in late October, and the appraiser spent about 2 hours at the residence measuring rooms and taking photos. I wasn't there, but Mom called later to tell me the preliminary value was $325,000, which was close to what I had predicted months before. The lawyer says we should expect the final sale sometime in December or January, she added, her voice bland and resigned. Sophia keeps asking whether there is any way to stop it, but he has made it obvious that there isn't. How is she doing? I inquired, startling myself with the inquiry. Not doing well. She's been very anxious about the whole scenario. She keeps saying that this was not how her first year of marriage was supposed to be. I wanted to remind out that her first year of marriage could have turned out quite differently if she hadn't insisted on a wedding that cost more than most people's annual wage. But there was no use in telling Mom. Around the same time I began feeling pressure from unexpected sources. My father's sister, Aunt Susan, contacted me one evening to address the problem. "Rachel, I know you're wounded by your mother's decisions," she said. "But don't you think you're going too far? Your father adored that house. That's where you grew up. Forcing your mother and sister to sell it appears so final." I explained my reasoning, but Aunt Susan persisted. "Can't you work out a payment plan? Perhaps Sophia might repay you over time." "With what money, Aunt Susan?" "She doesn't have a consistent employment, and she recently incurred significant debt for her wedding." "So, what happens when she starts working full-time or when she and Ethan become more established?" After 20 minutes of talking in circles, I figured out what was bothering Aunt Susan the most. "Are you worried about how this will affect the family?" I asked. There was a pause. "Yes, quite candidly. People are talking, Rachel. They accuse you of being vengeful and money-hungry. It doesn't look good on any of us." There it was. The true issue was not my financial security or family relationships. It was the family's reputation among the community. "I'm sorry you're embarrassed," I informed her. "But I'm not going to stay in debt for the rest of my life to protect the family image." That exchange made me realize how many people expected me to simply accept the financial implications of Sophia's decisions, in order to avoid making a scene. Some relatives seemed scandalized by the idea that I may value my own well-being over family unity, but others were more encouraging. Uncle David, Dad's brother, called me a few days after our talk with Aunt Susan. "I heard Susan gave you grief about the house situation," he told me. "I wanted you to know that not everyone in the family thinks you're wrong." "Thank you, Uncle David. That means a lot. Your father was always concerned that your mother would spoil Sophia to the point that it would harm her in the long term. He used to tell Sophia needed to learn to deal with disappointment and make concessions, or she'd never be able to function as an adult." This was the second time someone brought up Dad's reservations regarding Sophia's upbringing. I wish Dad was still here to assist me negotiate this issue, but I was beginning to suspect that he may have approved my decision. By early September, everyone engaged was clearly feeling the tension. Maria told me that Mom had been calling in sick to work more regularly, and Sophia had been spending most days in her pajamas, avidly reading internet forums about family financial issues. The irony was that if Sophia had spent half as much time looking for steady work as she did researching ways to blame me for their issues, she might have been able to start paying off their debt. In November, almost 3 months after I filed the complaint, my mother contacted me from an unfamiliar phone number. I almost didn't respond, but something made me pick up. "Rachel," she said quietly, discouraged. "Can we talk?" We met at a downtown coffee shop. Mom was fatigued, had lost weight, and had black circles under her eyes. "The lawyer says we can't stop the sale," she stated without explanation. "I understand. The house will most likely sell for approximately $325,000. After paying off both mortgages and legal bills, we'll have approximately $95,000 to split 3 ways." I did the calculation in my head. That meant I'd collect around $33,000, which is exactly what I predicted months ago. "That's not enough for us to buy another house in this region," Mom said. "Especially with Sophia's student loans and wedding debt. We will have to relocate somewhere cheaper. Probably rent for a while." I felt a flash of regret, but I forced it down. "I'm sorry things worked out this way." "Are you truly sorry, Rachel?" The question lingered in the air between us. Was I sorry? I was sorry that it had come to this. That our family had imploded. That Dad wasn't there to help us navigate this mess. But I wasn't sorry that I'd stood up for myself and refused to let them mortgage my future for Sophia's fantasy wedding. "I'm sorry we couldn't find a better solution," I finally said. Mom nodded slowly. I know you believe I have always preferred Sophia. Perhaps I did. She just seemed to need more support and encouragement. You were always so capable, so independent. I would have been fine, I said. But that doesn't mean I should have to sacrifice my financial security for Sophia's wants. You're right. The acknowledgement appeared to cost her something. I got caught up in trying to give her the ideal wedding. I didn't consider the long-term consequences. We talked for another hour. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was the first open discussion we'd had in years. Mom revealed that the wedding expenses had spiraled out of control, and she was too humiliated to admit she was in over her head. How about Sophia? I asked. Mom's face stiffened. Sophia is having difficulty accepting responsibility for any of this. She still believes you did this to hurt her personally. And you? Do you believe I did this to injure you? Mom considered the question carefully. I believe you did it to protect yourself. I don't like your techniques, but I understand why. In January, the house sold for $330,000, and I received a check for $33,000 after all fees and loan payments were deducted. I spent it as a down payment on a little condo closer to downtown, and I finally felt like I was building something for myself. Mom and Sophia ended up moving to a rental property approximately 30 minutes outside of the city, where the cost of living was lower. Mom had to take on a second part-time job to cover their bills, and Sophia finally became serious about finding steady work. I haven't spoken to Sophia since that day in my office. She has blocked me on all social media platforms, and she refuses to attend family events with me. According to other family, Sarah and Ethan are doing well, but the financial stress of the wedding debt has been difficult on their marriage. Mom and I have slowly begun to restore our relationship. We have lunch once a month, and while things aren't the same as they once were, they're more honest. She has stated that she enabled Sophia for years and that the wedding predicament was the result of a series of poor financial decisions. Sophia had a baby a few weeks ago, and Mom gave me pictures which made me feel a strange combination of feelings. I'm now an aunt, but I've never met my nephew, and I doubt I will anytime soon. Sometimes I question whether I did the right thing. Could I have solved the situation without ruining my family, or should I have just taken the debt to keep everyone together? But then I think of where I am now. I own my own home, have no debt other than my mortgage, and am creating a life based on my own choices and priorities. My relationship with my mother is based on mutual respect, rather than guilt and obligation. Sophia had her dream wedding, but at the expense of financial security and family connections. Mom learned some painful lessons about enabling and financial responsibility, and I learned that sometimes protecting yourself means making decisions that others will never understand or forgive. Will I do it again? Honestly, absolutely. I tried every other technique first, attempting to reason with them, compromise, and find alternatives. But they rejected my worries and patronized me at every point. When my mother told me, "You'll understand when you're older," she truly meant that my views and feelings didn't matter. That I was too young and inexperienced to form reasonable conclusions about my own life and financial prospects. Turns out, I understood perfectly well. I was being asked to give up my security for someone else's demands. I realized that my family considered me as a resource to be utilized rather as a person to be respected. And I realized that sometimes the only way to persuade people to take you seriously is to demonstrate that their actions have repercussions. The key I left on the table was more than a home key. It represented all I was leaving behind. The dysfunction, favoritism, financial irresponsibility, and the assumption that I would always be the one to make sacrifices for the happiness of others. I do not regret leaving it behind.